Part 1. Karma. Wealthy students at school showed odd behaviors toward poor scholarship kids. As mentioned earlier, at an elite Swiss boarding school, Randy's desperate move to save the narrator uncovered Preston's sinister scheme against poor scholarship kids, only the start of a dark web yet to be revealed. My strange classmate once tried to burn a crest into my skin with a piece of searing metal. That moment marked the beginning of everything. 6 months later at our graduation, he begged me not to bring his name up in my valedictorian speech. I was 13 when my parents cut me off. Oddly enough, it was the best day of my life. That was the day they sent me away to an elite Swiss boarding school. Before that, life at home had been nothing but abuse. So even though I was now surrounded by polished rich kids and constantly battling imposter syndrome, it was still better than the hell I'd come from. At first, I felt like the only outsider. Then 3 months in, I met someone who changed everything. Randy. He showed up with a beat-up backpack and a haircut that looked like it had been done in a bathroom mirror. The second he walked into the dining hall, the room went dead silent. I was about to offer him a seat with me and my friends, when Jake, my roommate, grabbed my arm. "Don't," he said. "The last scholarship kid stole 3 Rolexes and a MacBook before they kicked him out." I wanted to tell Jake that I knew exactly what it felt like to not belong, but I also remembered my first month eating alone, getting ignored, and how hard I had worked to fit in. So I just nodded. In my head, I told myself Randy would have to fight through it the same way I had. But what they did to him, I still lose sleep over it. It started off subtle. The library installed a metal detector, but he was the only one required to go through it. Rich kids spilled things on his clothes on purpose, knowing he couldn't afford to replace them. But he never lashed out. He did something even harder. He stayed kind. When his mom sent him cookies, he handed them out to everyone, even the ones who made his life miserable. I once saw him pick up a $50 bill in the hallway and ask around to find its owner. It was the kind of high school drama where no one knew who to believe, so most of us stayed out of it. Then Legacy Week came. If you're not familiar, it's a week where students whose families had attended the school for generations were allowed to basically harass students whose parents hadn't. It was all dressed up as tradition. I figured if I stayed buried in the library, I'd be safe. One night, around 11, I was heading back to my dorm when 3 Legacy students cornered me in the basement. Preston, the ringleader, stepped out from the shadows, holding the school crest. The metal glinted in the dim light. He flicked his lighter and held the flame underneath it until the edges started glowing orange. "Every non-Legacy needs to know their place," he said. He told the other 2 to hold me. They pinned my arms. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Couldn't think of anything except the pain I knew was coming. But then the fire alarm rang. The sprinklers kicked on. Water blasted down from the ceiling, soaking everything. Preston dropped the glowing crest, and it hissed as it hit the wet floor. "Go," someone shouted. They let me go and ran. Through the downpour, I saw Randy at the fire alarm station, his hand still gripping the lever. He helped me to my feet, and we ran as security rushed toward the basement. The next morning, we were both called to the headmaster's office. I walked in thinking justice was finally coming for Preston. But the headmaster didn't even look at me. He stared straight at Randy. "Do you have any idea how much damage you caused?" His voice was cold. "The basement is flooded. Thousands of francs in damage." Randy tried to explain. They were trying to. "This is what happens when we let people like you," and the headmaster interrupted. "You can take a kid out of the gutter, but you can't take the gutter out of the kid. One more incident, and you're gone." Randy's shoulders slumped. He nodded. We were dismissed. But Preston wasn't finished. He was waiting outside the office with his friends. He leaned in and whispered something to Randy that made his whole body go tense. Then he walked away, laughing. Randy wouldn't tell me what was said. He just disappeared into his room and locked the door. The next morning, I was halfway through breakfast when I noticed everyone running toward the hallway. I followed them thinking maybe there'd been a fire or something worse. The crowd led to Randy's room. Inside, campus security was tearing the place apart. Randy stood in the corner silent. One guard held up a plastic bag. "Found cannabis in his desk," he announced. By noon, Randy was expelled. No hearing, no investigation, just gone. That evening, I found him behind the dorms, with his belongings stuffed into a garbage bag. He was crying. Really crying, the kind of sobbing that rips through you. This boy, who had never been anything but decent, even to those who hated him, had finally broken. I didn't say anything, just sat with him while he cried. After a few minutes, he looked up at me. His eyes were red and swollen. "You were the only one here who ever tried to be kind to me," he said. "So you deserve to know why this mattered so much." He pulled a photo from his wallet. A man in scrubs stood in front of a hospital. "My sister has leukemia. Back in Syria, my dad was a doctor. He could have helped. But here we can barely afford her treatment. I thought this school was my chance to save her." He stood slinging the garbage bag over his shoulder. Preston knew. That's what he whispered, that she'd die before I could ever help her. Rage surged in my chest. I'd spent nearly a year hoping someone would take Preston down. I never thought that someone would be me. As I watched Randy's taxi disappear into the fog, I pulled out my phone. My hands shook as I typed, "You destroyed someone innocent. This isn't over." His reply came fast, a laughing emoji. Then another, then 5 more. The next morning, Preston was in the dining hall. Like nothing had happened, sitting at the center of his usual table, surrounded by lacrosse teammates and smug legacy kids. I sat nearby pretending to read, while secretly recording everything on my phone. His voice was loud enough for half the room to hear. He made cruel jokes about charity cases and people who don't belong, never saying Randy's name, but making it painfully obvious who he meant. Every smug laugh, every snide comment, I got it all on tape. Back in our room that afternoon, Jake found me pacing, phone in hand. He closed the door behind him. "You need to stop this," he said, serious. "Preston's dad owns half of Switzerland Bank's real estate, you name it. You can't beat that kind of money." I ignored him. That night, I stayed late in the computer lab, compiling everything I had, recordings, timestamps, and statements I'd gathered. When I finally hit send to the school board and Randy's family, I felt a sense of justice. It lasted exactly 3 seconds. The auto reply crushed me. "All complaints must be submitted through the proper administrative channels. Please contact your house advisor." The next morning, I tried to check my email and found it locked. Account suspended for inappropriate use of school resources. My stomach dropped. They were already moving against me. Later that day, Preston cornered me in an empty classroom, Marcus standing behind him like a hired goon. Preston held up his phone. "Funny thing about having your name on buildings," he said. "People tend to do what you ask." On the screen was clear security footage of me entering the computer lab the night before. I knew instantly how he'd gotten it. Back in my dorm, I found the worst of it all. My cloud files were gone. Every recording, every note, every piece of evidence I'd collected erased. Marcus later bragged that he'd convinced campus security to let him into the lab after I left. Said he was just doing some late-night studying. They handed him an access card without question. The library became the only place I felt safe. That's where Sarah found me. She was older, the daughter of an ambassador, sharp, confident, and known for making teachers squirm with tough questions. She sat across from me, leaned in, and whispered, "I know what Preston's doing, and I want in." Preston escalated quickly. During lunch, his girlfriend Astrid accidentally spilled a full cup of coffee over my laptop bag. The bag was soaked, and I could hear the circuits frying. She apologized with a fake smile and an even faker oops. That night, I found a note under my door. Neat handwriting. Simple message. "Drop this or end up like Randy. We know about your psych records." My stomach turned. Those records were supposed to be sealed. Therapy notes from the abuse I'd endured before coming here. Somehow Preston had them. Sarah delivered, The next day, she passed me a USB in the hallway without saying a word. Back in my room, I opened it and found Gold, her own secret stash of recordings, screenshots of messages between Preston and Marcus, even photos of Preston outside Randy's room the night before he got expelled. She'd been collecting dirt for weeks. Things got worse. I got an email that my work-study position, the job that helped me afford school fees, was under review. Recent behavior was cited. Preston was tightening the noose. Jake asked to switch rooms. His eyes didn't meet mine when he explained why. Preston's dad called my parents. Said it'd be a shame if their residency permits didn't renew. Their family ran a restaurant in Zurich. They couldn't risk it. I understood, but it still hurt. Alone now, I dove into research. I combed through the school newspaper archives and found something familiar. A scholarship student named Alex had transferred out last year after a disciplinary issue with Preston. It was the same script. Then came one of Preston's nastiest moves. He started dating Emma, my calculus study partner. Suddenly, she was too busy to meet, always full of excuses. It wasn't hard to guess why. Even the cafeteria staff joined in. My allergy-sensitive meals stopped showing up. When I asked, they shrugged and said I must have forgotten to order. Walking to town for safe food took time and money I didn't have. I reached out to Dr. Hoffman, the school counselor. She listened with a tight smile, occasionally scribbling what looked more like doodles than notes. When I finished, she told me I was probably just dealing with adjustment stress and paranoia. Later, I learned she was dating Preston's uncle. My next break came from someone unexpected. I got paired with Preston's roommate, Daniel, for a European history project. He was twitchy at first, but eased up as we worked. Eventually, he invited me to their room to grab a textbook. While he rummaged through a shelf, I spotted a leather-bound journal on Preston's desk. My hands shook as I flipped it open. Inside were pages of notes, names, backgrounds, weaknesses. Randy Syrian, sick sister, full scholarship. Watch closely. Alex Chen, expelled March 2023. Family can't afford legal. It was a blueprint, a hit list. Preston had been doing this for years. Astrid must have noticed me hanging around Daniel because she started popping up everywhere I went, asking awkward questions about our friendship. It was obvious she was reporting back to Preston. Still, the journal gave me clarity. Preston wasn't just a bully. He was systematic. He found vulnerabilities, exploited them, and drove his targets out of school. Then Marcus approached me. He found me behind the athletic fields, nervous and fidgeting. I didn't sign up for this, he said. He admitted he felt guilty about Randy, but was scared his family had gone broke getting him here. I showed him the journal, pointed out his name under a list labeled Monitor Risk of Disloyalty. He turned pale. Preston had been watching him too. Preston must have sensed the shift because he tested Marcus. Told him to spy on me, watch who I talked to, report anything suspicious. The fact that Marcus told me meant something was changing. It became official when Sarah stood up during student council and demanded answers about Randy's expulsion. The room went dead silent. The faculty advisor tried to shut her down. She kept going. She didn't name names, but everyone knew who she meant. Preston sat in the back, jaw-clenched eyes, burning holes in the floor. That night, walking back to my room, I felt it for the first time, a tiny flicker of hope. Not just for justice, but for change. We weren't just reacting anymore. We were building something. We had allies. We had truth. And we were just getting started. Preston's next attack came through social media. Fake accounts popped up overnight, all spreading lies under my name. They posted claims that I'd witnessed teachers doing things they shouldn't have, touching, stealing worse. The posts used just enough real-sounding detail to make people question them. By noon, parents were calling the school in a panic. I recognized the play immediately. It was straight from Preston's journal. When intimidation fails, make your target toxic. Make them too dangerous to protect. That night, I documented everything. Screenshots, metadata, IP ranges. The accounts had all been made recently, using the same block of addresses. And then help came from somewhere I never expected. Mr. Petrov, the janitor, pulled me aside after breakfast. His hands trembled as he spoke in broken English mixed with German. He'd seen Preston the night before Randy was expelled. He'd been fixing a hallway light and watched Preston slip into Randy's room holding something. Thank you for listening to today's stories. Part 2 will be updated soon. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.